Hello everyone. Today I'm very excited to discuss a research instrument that we see in almost every applied linguistics study, the questionnaire. Although many people think designing a questionnaire is simply writing a list of questions, it is actually a scientific instrument that requires very careful planning to ensure that the data we collect is both accurate and useful. In my presentation, I will walk you through what a questionnaire really is, why it is so widely used in applied linguistics research, and how we can design one properly to meet academic standards. Let's begin by understanding what this tool actually is. So first, what exactly is a questionnaire? According to Brown 2001, a questionnaire is any written instrument that presents respondents with a series of prompts to collect information. The keyword here is standardization. Every participant receives the exact same wording in the same order. That is what allows us to transform something very subjective, like anxiety or motivation, into objective numbers that we can statistically analyze. In applied linguistics, this makes questionnaire perfect for investigating learner characteristics, right? Beliefs, emotions, and also behaviors, all of which play a very crucial role in language learning. Now, let's consider why questionnaires are popular in applied linguistics. Dornier 2007 emphasizes that questionnaires are extremely efficient. Instead of interviewing 200 students one by one, a researcher can gather responses in less than 20 minutes. Because of this scalability, we can study a large sample, which improves generalizability of our findings, something that case studies cannot do. Finally, questionnaires are versatile. They can measure psychological constructs like motivation, test anxiety, or willingness to communicate, things we cannot observe directly. So, in short, questionnaires provide the breadth and statistical strength that help applied linguistic researcher uncover trends across the large population, right? To build questionnaire properly, we need to understand the paradigm behind it. In quantitative research, we follow the positivist or the post-positivist tradition, right? Which assumes that human behavior, including language learning, can be measured objectively. As researchers, we intentionally keep a distance from the participants to minimize our own influence and we can avoid the bias. The reasoning we use is deductive. We start with a theory, then test hypothesis using numerical evidence. So questionnaires are not just lists of questions, they are tools for scientific measurement. We convert psychological phenomena like motivation or anxiety into numbers that we can analyze with statistics. That is the core of this paradigm. In order to measure something, we must convert theoretical construct into variables. First is the independent variable, such as the gender or proficiency, which we use to compare different groups of learners. Then we have the dependent variable, which is the outcome we want to understand. For example, do the student with higher proficiency feel less anxious? Finally, we must be careful with extraneous variables like classroom noise, the test stress. If we don't control them properly, they can sometimes disturb our results. This process of defining and measuring variables is called operationalization, and it is essential for designing effective questionnaires. One of the main reasons questionnaires are so powerful is the type of data they produce. Most questionnaire responses are converted into numbers, usually from Likert scales. Because of this numerical nature, we can run a variety of statistical tests such as correlations, t-tests, ANOVA, to identify meaningful pattern in language learning. This makes questionnaires ideal for studies that need generalizable results across large samples. For example, how motivation differs between Year 1 and Year 3 students. So the type of data generated aligns perfectly with the goals of quantitative applied linguistic research. A well-designed questionnaire typically follows a three-part structure. We begin with a brief introduction and instruction, clearly stating the purpose of the study and emphasizing that responses will remain anonymous. This helps lower anxiety and encourage honesty. Next, we usually collect demographic information such as gender, age, proficiency level. These are independent variables. And finally, the main body focuses on the dependent variables that we want to measure, such as motivation or language anxiety. This structure is simple but highly effective, ensuring that the instrument produces data that is both reliable and easy to analyze. When designing the questionnaire, choosing the right type of items is crucial. In quantitative research, we mainly use closed-ended items. For example, multiple choice question or Likert scale. These are very fast for respondents and easy for us to analyze using statistical software like SPSS or R. However, we sometimes include one or two open-ended questions at the end to allow respondents to share additional thoughts or perspective we may have missed. So the key is balance. Closed items give us numbers. Open items give us context. Numbers, context. One of the most widely used tools in applied linguistics is the Likert scale. Rather than asking a yes-no question like, are you anxious? We present statement and ask students to indicate their level of agreement on a scale, usually from 1 to 5. This allows us to turn a subjective emotion like speaking anxiety into numerical value. When we collect enough responses, we can calculate averages and even run inferential statistics to look for correlations or root differences. So the Likert scale is extremely powerful in helping us understand psychological construct that cannot be directly observed. Designing a questionnaire may look simple, but there are many pitfalls that can damage validity. A common mistake is asking two things in one item, known as a double barrel question. Students cannot give the truthful answer if they disagree with one part but agree with the other. Another problem is the leading question. The moment we suggest the right answer, participants may feel pressure to respond in a certain way. Finally, vague terms like often can mean different things to different learners. By forcing respondents to guess, we weaken the accuracy of our data. So wording must be crystal clear, neutral to protect research quality. Once the questionnaire is designed, the way we administer it can make or break the study. First, we must choose participants very carefully to ensure that our sample accurately represents the target population. Next, we decide the mode. Online questionnaires are very quick and convenient, while paper-based formats often achieve higher completion rates because the researcher is physically present to clarify any doubts. Finally, context matters. We should distribute the survey in a very quiet space and avoid stressful times like exam weeks so that external anxiety does not contaminate our data. So administration must be intentional to ensure trustworthy results. Before collecting any data, ethics must come first. We must clearly explain the study's purpose and also allow participants to give informed consent voluntarily. We typically guarantee anonymity. No personal identifiers are collected. And if names must be recorded, then confidentiality ensures only the research team can access the data. We also avoid questions that may cause embarrassment or emotional distress, especially in academic settings where students may fear being judged. Ethical practice increases trust, and trust leads to more honest and valid responses. So ethical considerations are not just a requirement, they directly improve the data quality. Once we've collected all responses, the next question is, what do we do with these numbers? We begin with descriptive statistics, such as mean and standard deviation, the SD. These help us understand the general trend. For example, whether students' motivation is high or low overall. We then move to inferential statistics, which allow us to test hypotheses. Correlation can show if motivation is linked to test scores. A t-test can tell us whether males and females differ in anxiety levels, and ANOVA can compare more than two groups. So the data analysis is where questionnaires transform from simple responses into meaningful research evidence. Even if a question looks great, we must prove it is reliable. Reliability means the results remain consistent. if the instrument is repeated under the same conditions. We focus on internal consistency, which checks whether all items measuring a construct, for example, speaking anxiety, actually belong together. We calculate this using Cronbach alpha, and in applied linguistics, a coefficient above 0.7 is acceptable. Without this evidence, our numbers cannot be trusted. So reliability is a fundamental requirement to support scientific value of the findings. Reliability alone is not enough. A broken clock is reliable. It's just reliably wrong. We need validity, which refers to accuracy. The biggest challenge is construct validity. Are we measuring language anxiety or just general shyness? We also need content validity to ensure we represent the entire construct. For example, a proficiency questionnaire should not include only grammar. It must also cover listening, speaking, and reading. Finally, external validity tells us whether our result with 200 students here can apply to other students in similar contexts. So validity ensures that our conclusions are not only consistent, but also correct. Even when a questionnaire is reliable and valid, we still need to make sure our research is trustworthy. First, we need transparency, meaning we clearly report who the participants are, how they were selected, and how missing data was handled. Second, we maintain objectivity by interpreting numbers as they are, not what we hope they show. Finally, triangulation is a powerful technique. After collecting questionnaire data, we can confirm the results using follow-up interviews or classroom observations. So trustworthiness helps us ensure that our research findings are not only statistical, but also credible and defensible. To understand how questionnaires are applied in real research, let's look at motivation, one of the most studied constructs in SLA. Cormus and Gisez, 2014, distributed a large-scale motivation questionnaire to more than 1,700 EFL students. Their findings show that students with a strong ideal L2 self, meaning they can picture themselves successfully using English, tend to show higher motivation and more autonomous learning behaviors. This demonstrates how questionnaires allow us to measure psychological construct that strongly influence language learning success. A second common application is in measuring speaking anxiety. Howes and colleagues in 1986 developed the famous FLCAS, Foreign Language Classroom Anxiety Scale. Using this instrument, researchers repeatedly found that students who report higher anxiety tend to avoid speaking opportunities and perform worse in oral tasks. By capturing invisible emotion, questionnaires help teachers understand not only what learners can do, but also what holds them back. Beyond collecting data, questionnaires have contributed greatly to methodological development in SOA. For instance, Donya and Taguchi in 2010 emphasized that questionnaires must be adapted carefully when used in different cultural contexts, such as Vietnam or Japan. This ensures that the items are understood the same way by all respondents. Meanwhile, Liu and Jackson, 2008, combined questionnaires with interviews, a mixed method approach to verify whether students' self-reported anxiety truly matched their behaviors. These contributions highlight how questionnaires help improve measurement rigor and expand research possibilities. There are solid reasons why questionnaires remain one of the most dominant instruments in applied linguistics. They are efficient, allowing rapid data collection, and scalable to hundreds or even thousands of participants, increasing the generalizability. Because everyone receives the same items, we reduce researcher influence and maintain objectivity. Finally, questionnaires provide statistical power. They help us not only describe what is happening, but also discover why through correlations and root comparisons. In short, they allow us to explore big questions at the population level. Of course, no instrument is perfect. A major weakness of questionnaires is their lack of depth. They give the what, but often not the why. They are also rigid. Once distributed, we cannot ask a follow-up question, even if interesting ideas emerge. And importantly, questionnaires rely on self-report. Sometimes learners give answers they think are socially acceptable instead of being completely honest. This is why mixed method designs are often recommended to balance the breadth and the depth. To conclude, questionnaires are not just forms, they are methodologically sophisticated instruments. Their strength lies in efficiency, generalizability, analytic power, but these benefits only emerge when the design is rigorous, guided by theory, tested by reliability, and validated for accuracy. Used effectively, questionnaires continue to drive valuable insight in applied linguistics. Thank you very much for your attention. I leave my phone and my email, and I welcome any questions. Thank you, Ms. Nhung, and everyone for listening.